All right. Hello, my friends. It looks like we're live. I want to welcome you. So good to see you this beautiful, what is for me, sunny September morning. And I am joining you today. I'm coming to you live to talk a little bit more about what I see as a pretty pressing issue. And that is looking at some of the top myths about major gifts that may actually be getting in the way of your fundraising success. So today we're going to talk about the 4 top myths that I see circulating around that might be hurting your fundraising. So if you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Emma Lewzey. I work with 𝗕𝗏cie Philanthropy, and my goal is to help fundraisers and nonprofit leaders just like you raise more 5- and 6-figure gifts for their amazing missions. So that is what today is going to be all about. We're going to be looking at those barriers that may be getting in the way of you raising more major gifts for your mission. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. But before I do, I'll say really quickly, if you're just joining us, I would love to hear from you. Just say hello. Let us know where you're joining from. I love to hear from folks while I'm live, while I'm chatting. Hello, 𝗕𝗏𝗁𝗁. It is so nice to see you here, to see your lovely, friendly face here. Welcome. And if you are catching up on the replay, I want to welcome you as well. Go ahead and use the hashtag replay. I always like to come back and check in to see if there are any more insights, any more questions. And as we're chatting, I really would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, if you have any insights, this is the fun part about being live. Go ahead and drop those below. All right, with that, I'm going to get started with my myth number 1 I want to talk about. And that is this idea that big donors are somewhere out there. I see that very often when organizations are just starting to grow their major gift program, or perhaps they have an existing one that they really want to scale up. The first place a lot of us look is outside the organization. Now, that's great prospect researching and being really aware of what donors are doing in your community. That can be an important part of a major gift program. However, it is not the first place you need to start. You need to start with those donors who are already committed to you first. Now, maybe sub-myth number 2 that I hear when I talk about this myth a lot is this idea of like, well, Emma, we don't actually know anyone who has the capacity to make a major gift, right? I hear that a lot, and that's something you might be thinking right now. But it's almost inevitable in more than 20 years of fundraising at small, medium, and large shops, and now 5 years of consulting, I have inevitably seen in every organization there are those community members that are engaging with you already, who are already committed to your mission, that have the capacity to give a major gift. So if this is not something that you're thinking about or focusing on, you really do need to start shifting that mindset and think about those donors who are already committed to you first, right? It's not unusual. Often when I work with an organization to do a fundraising opportunity assessment, a big part of that is doing a data capacity review with a prospect researcher. It's not at all unusual to see sometimes anywhere between 3, 4, sometimes 7 to 8 times the capacity on your existing donor base than is actually being realized in your fundraising. So important for you to make sure that you are starting with those donors who are committed to you first. This is where you need to be really building your pipeline, right? First place to start, building those pipeline by looking at those who are closest with you first. There are those who are meaningfully engaged with you who are ready to make a more aspirational gift. All right, I love this. So that's number 1. And hello, Andrea, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So If you're just joining us, we're talking all about common myths that will get in the way of your major gift fundraising. So if you're just joining us, say hello. Go ahead and let us know where you're joining from below. I would love to hear from you. And as always, drop any questions or insights below as I'm sharing this, because I would love to hear from you. And this is actually where a lot of these myths originally came from. It's just conversations I'm having with frontline fundraisers and organizations who are working on establishing or growing that major gift program. So I would love to hear your insights. Number 2, this is one of my favorites. I'm actually really passionate about dismantling this myth, and that is we're too small to raise major gifts. All right, we're too small to raise major gifts. Now, I come at this myth from a pretty unique perspective in that I've actually worked in very small, medium, and large and very large shops over the course of my time in fundraising. So I've seen how it works both in those very large shops, that may be very focused on major gifts, but as well, I've also seen how major gifts work in a small shop where perhaps I've been the only solo fundraiser. And let me tell you, small shops are so well and uniquely positioned to raise major gifts. And I'm going to tell you a little more why. I think a lot of small shops see major gifts as the sort of exclusive territory of large shops, right? And a lot of big shops, they can start their major gifts as high as $100,000, right? So if you're a small shop, if you think of all of the wonderful opportunity that may lie between $1,000 and $100,000, right? There's an incredible opportunity there for you when you think larger shops are typically really focusing those major gift efforts at the very, at the very start at the 6-figure level. So you have a ton of amazing opportunity in there at the 5-figure level and the 6 as well. But here's what I have noticed in my travels as a frontline fundraiser in both small and large shops. Your smallness is actually a unique selling feature to your major donors. And I'll tell you why. Oftentimes, donors will feel like their gift will have a greater impact at a smaller shop. Their gift will actually stretch further at a smaller shop. And I'll share something that a donor shared with me when I was first starting out doing major gifts at a small shop. This has stuck with me ever since. And this donor said, actually wrote this down because I didn't want to forget this. I'd hear comments like this one really, really made me reframe how I thought about major gifts. This donor said, my donations can sometimes feel like a drop in the bucket at larger charities, but at your organization, I know that my gift is making a huge difference. So if you're a small shop and you think, we can't do major gifts, I want you to start thinking about this differently. I want you to start seeing the unique opportunity that you have as a small shop, not only to tap into that huge segment of donors who are ready to give very, very generous 5- and 6-figure gifts, but also thinking about the fact that this is actually a crucial part of our case for support. This idea is that we're small, we're community-based, your gift is going to have a bigger impact, your gift is going to go a lot further. That can be a very, very useful way to position yourself. So I want you to start shifting your mindset a little bit around this one if you are a smaller shop. Now, medium and large shops, never fear, you have your own unique selling features as well when it comes to working with major donors. But I find that small shops are typically the ones that see the most barriers, right? Because of their smallness. What I want to emphasize here is your smallness is actually a unique and valuable feature of the work you're doing, a unique and valuable feature of your major gift fundraising. All right. So the third thing I wanted to touch on is one I've been hearing a lot more lately, and this is really interesting. This one's been popping up. This is the idea that systems or processes will actually depersonalize our relationship with major donors. Interesting. I wonder if that resonates with you, because I've heard that increasingly when I've been working with people. There's a hesitancy for some frontline fundraisers around this idea of actually implementing a system because they feel like it's going to actually get in the way of that relationship building. So let me actually first talk about what the heck do I mean by a system. I think that gets a bit confusing. And it's really simple. A system is just a way of working, a way of organizing, you know, a set, something that follows like a fixed set of rules, basically, or a fixed plan. So that's what I would define as a system, right? And I think this is where things can get sticky for a lot of fundraisers, especially if we are very relationship oriented. We tend to be sort of more warm and fuzzy types, and it can feel like, and this is where this myth comes from, I think, it can feel like this idea that a system or a process or automations can actually like interfere with that very human process of building strong relationships with our donors, right? So if this one does resonate with you and you sometimes find yourself resisting this idea of establishing systems and processes to support your major gift program, I want to let you know is that I believe this work just matters way too much to be left to chance, okay? You can have some success doing things very organically, very early on, but as you grow, as you get more major gifts, as you get more major donors, that approach tends to start falling apart. And what you see is things start slipping through the cracks. You're not consistent, and then you actually end up in the place you wanted to avoid the most in the first place, in that place of, you know, things happening that are actually undermining the relationship building process. So I want you to do a bit of a mindset shift here as well. Like for me, I got to a point in my fundraising career really when I realized that having a good system or process in place is actually the only way I can relax and not worry about things falling through the cracks. And you'll find this too, you know, as your major gift program grows. You may also find this if you're at a medium or large shop right now and working with a large number of donors. If you're feeling very overwhelmed, sometimes that can be the real issue there. If there is not a really clear system or set of processes in place to guide and support your work. That's how I see a system now, not only in my fundraising, but also in my business. It is just this wonderful sort of supportive network that you can put in place underneath your work, just to make sure that you are always doing your best with donors. Make sure that nothing is, you know, nothing is falling off your busy plate, nothing is slipping between your cracks. So I really want you to start seeing as systems or processes as a necessary support to that truly donor-centered work, right? And getting in that habit of setting up and using systems on a daily basis, it can go a really long way in terms of addressing some of the challenges that we feel oftentimes as fundraisers, that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of never having enough time. Good systems and processes can really help you support you around this. So, all right. So with that, I'll actually ask you to weigh in. I want to hear from you now. I'd love to hear, has anything I've talked about today been getting in the way of you raising more major gifts? And do you have any other myths that you've come across in your travels? Maybe there are beliefs or myths that are being held within your organization that you find are barriers to your major gift growth. So go ahead and drop those below. I'd love to hear from you. And with that, I love it hearing from Michelle. Yes. Okay, Michelle's got a question. You know what? I'm going to hold the questions to the end, but I will definitely get to that, Michelle, who is asking about a robust case for support, which is a really important part. Speaking of systems and processes, having a robust case is a really important part of your major giving program. And Michelle, I'll just get to that at the end when I have finished off my final number 4 myth. And thank you for going ahead and dropping that question. I love to hear questions from you. So let me just wrap up with myth number 4, which is also one of the most important things I wanted to address. It's this idea that we need to have everything perfect before we get started. And Michelle, this may plug into your question as well, because that's something common that I see in a lot of major gift programs, is this idea that we need to achieve seamless perfection when we're working with major donors, right? And I think I know where this comes from. You know, fundraising and nonprofit leadership does tend to attract a lot of type A personalities, myself included. I'll call myself a recovering type A personality. And right, like we have a lot of tendencies that can be very helpful and very useful in terms of moving our fundraising forward and growing our fundraising, but we need to be aware of where this type A tendency can hold us back. And that typically is striving for impossible perfection. Perfectionism is a huge issue that I see in major gifts programs, small, medium, and I would say especially large shops that tend to have very established major gift programs. I have seen perfectionism really get in the way of that meaningful growth, right? And this idea that everything has to be absolutely perfect when we're working with major donors. Let me know if that resonates with you. It's a very common problem. So here's some of the signs, right? You may find yourself hesitating a lot. You may find yourself waiting for perfect conditions before you take action, before you move towards those goals, right? And so here's the problem is, when we're feeling like we're never ready as major gift fundraisers, or we feel like we don't have all the facts, that's another big one. Who has gotten stuck in that endless cycle of prospect researcher before you reach out to a donor? Also a common challenge. When we fall into that trap of not taking action until we feel like everything's perfect or we're totally ready, we're really getting in our own way and oftentimes actually sabotaging our own success. Here's something I've seen happening before at major gift shops. We may be tinkering with and fine-tuning a major donor proposal so much rather than getting that proposal over to the donor in a timely fashion while they're still enthusiastic, striking while the iron's hot. Instead of that, we tinker and we edit by committee, and we spend so much time on it. Sometimes weeks and weeks and weeks have gone by until we get back to the donor with that. So to me, it's a balance, right? You obviously want to be sharing your highest quality work, but at the same time, you have to make sure that this tendency towards perfectionism is not getting in the way of you taking timely action on growing your major gift program. So listen, I want to leave you with this. Is a phrase I think of often, and that is perfect is the enemy of good fundraising, right? So if you're finding that perfectionism is getting in the way of your major gifts, whether it's your own or whether it's a culture that has been established at your organization, time to start recognizing and challenging that, right? Because I think it can be a really big barrier, this idea that everything needs to be absolutely perfect before we move forward with our major giving is a significant myth, a significant barrier that's getting in the way of your major gift success. So those are my 4 myths that I really wanted to talk about today. I know there are many, many more, so I'd love to hear from you. I'm just going to take a quick sip of my water and I'm going to get to Michelle's question. But if you've come across any myths, I would love to hear from you. Go ahead and drop those below. What have you seen that's come up that tends to be a barrier to major giving growth at your organization? All right, so Michelle has a great question here. I'm going to go ahead and read this aloud, if that's okay, Michelle. So if you don't have a robust case for support, for example, it's in development, a situation many organizations are in, and a donor approaches wanting to provide significant support. Yeah, I love that. Emphasis Michelle's, but I will say yes to you too. Is there a better way to tease out investment opportunities for our programs and services for those that are versus aren't government funded, selling the back-end admin along with the underfunded program opportunities? All right, so this is a great question, and it gets at a lot of really relevant issues, I think, in our work. So first off, congratulations. You have had a donor approach you and say, you know, I actually want to get involved and I want to provide significant support to you. So that's something to celebrate. So I'd say first and foremost, I always like to talk about celebration. I hope you, Michelle, have taken a moment to celebrate this wonderful news with you and your team, because that is, it's a big and important thing to celebrate for sure. So if you're thinking about this, I think the first thing I want to know is a little bit more about the donor. So you probably had some conversations with that donor. Is like, what inspires their support? Why did they approach you wanting to do this in the first place, right? Because I think that will help you understand a little bit more about, like, where might this donor fit? What are their values around giving? What are their values around supporting the work that you do? Because I find what we can sometimes do too quickly with major gifts is offer up highly restricted giving opportunities. And depending on the donor, that's not necessarily the best place to directly take a major donor. I think that's another myth I wanna raise as well. Here we go. Another myth I wanna raise as well is the idea that all major gifts and all major donors want to highly restrict their gifts, right? Granted, I will say that, raising unrestricted or undesignated major gifts is a little bit trickier, but there are donors who are very close to you, especially right now during recovery after the pandemic, recovery, uncertainty, whatever is happening, in the future, we don't necessarily know. But I think at this time period, I think I'm seeing a pattern of there being more major donors being willing to be more flexible with their gift in terms of not super tightly restricting it, in terms of, allowing you to have a bit of flexibility to apply this where your greatest need is, to be able to use that money to, sort of remain nimble and address the greatest needs in your communities. So I would say first and foremost, really important not to assume that the donor is going to want to really tightly restrict this gift right off the bat. So my instinct is I want to know a little bit more about the donor. Like, what do they want to achieve with this gift? Why did they approach you? What inspired this? If they're already giving to you, what is inspiring that commitment to your cause and your organization? So once you know that, that'll kind of help you align things a little more. That does get to the part of your question just about, not necessarily wanting to make sure that you are ensuring that you're fully funding and supporting that ever crucial infrastructure at your organization, right? The admin, along with like the program or service delivery opportunities. So yeah, I would say don't jump straight to the idea of restricting it. The other thing I would say is that definitely when I am thinking, when I know a donor does want to target their giving, when they do want to restrict that gift, do make sure that you're building in that appropriate infrastructure costs, right? Because let's face it, if you don't have a staff team, if you don't have infrastructure, if you don't have capital support to help keep the lights on and keep the doors open, there is no program, right? So sometimes this can be a little bit of donor education, but I find increasingly savvy philanthropists get this, right? Savvy philanthropists get that there needs to be a certain amount of infrastructure funding in order to ensure that you can actually make that commitment or meet that commitment, to actually deliver the service that you are, you're talking about delivering to when you're working with your donor. So hopefully that makes sense. Go ahead and let me know, Michelle, if you wanted to clarify anything. But yeah, this connects back to a few of our myths, right? As you're needing to take action before you have a case or support finalized. That can be a bit uncomfortable, but I would say your number one goal is to have a conversation with the donors to understand a little bit more about their motivations, what they want to achieve with their giving. That can help you kind of make some alignments between your organizational priorities and your donors' priorities. And not to immediately go to this idea of very tightly restricting the gift, as can be our tendency sometimes as fundraisers. Keep that a little more open, because this may be one of those savvy donors who recognizes the importance of providing support that you can use to address the greatest needs in your communities, which are changing, ever changing, given all of the future uncertainty, depending upon the nature of the work that you do. And then my final tip for you was, if it is a restricted opportunity and the donor does want to direct that gift to a specific program or service, just make absolutely sure that you are appropriately building in that crucial infrastructure support, because without infrastructure, it is impossible to deliver our programs and services. And I do believe that the savvy donors understand that, right? So all stuff to uncover during the course of a conversation with your donor. But congratulations. I do hope that you're taking a moment to celebrate this great news. I hope you found this helpful. Go ahead, I'm just going to scroll down. Go ahead and let me know if you needed any clarification on my answer to your question, which was a few different parts, but it can be a little can sometimes be a little complex, for sure, when we're especially in the absence of a case for support. So yes, so that's all from me. Let me know if you have any other questions, any other insights. I would love to hear from you. And I also want to let you know, while I'm going ahead and wrapping up, is that I have something coming up next week I am super excited about, and you've heard it here first. I'm going to go ahead next week and actually open up my Major Gift Master Plan program, which is a step-by-step system to help you raise more 5- and 6-figure gifts to your mission. I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm actually offering a sneak peek right inside the program. So I'm opening that up to you for free, and I'm offering you time-limited free access to my first module in Major Gift Master Plan. And here's how you get access to this. I would say my top recommendation to you would be, if you're not on my email list, go ahead and sign up for that, because I'll be sending out that information to sign up for this first thing next week. I'll get Shanna to drop that link below. So if you're not on my list, go ahead and sign up for that. And you can also keep an eye right here, whatever platform you're watching me on. I'll make sure I post that information as well. But yes, next week, first time ever, I'm going to be giving you a backstage pass and free access to the first module of Major Gift Master Plan. It's the exact same module that all of my students get when they register for the full program, just so you can have a little peek under the hood and see if it's a good fit for you. So keep an eye out for that. All right, and with that, I'm going to wrap up. I don't see any other questions, but go ahead, as I said, if you are catching up on the replay, go ahead, use the hashtag replay, and I will be back and following up with any other questions or comments that you have, even after we wrap up today. So I hope you all found this chat helpful. And I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time out to join me here today. I am so, so grateful for you and for all of the incredible work that you're doing in your community. And I know it's been a tough go. So I want to say that I see you and I appreciate you, and take good care of yourself as we I've been talking about this. It's like being on a roller coaster. We're kind of going up the hill, getting ready for year end. Woo! So it's that anticipation and that excitement that's coming up. And I want to say I'm grateful for you and all that you do, especially as we enter into this busy season during this time that's pretty stressful and uncertain. So thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you for taking the time out to join me here today. And hopefully we will see you inside Major Gift Master Plan when I open that sneak peek up to you next week. I'd love to see you there. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us.